Opinjana Ballava Girivanadari Opinjana Ballava Girivanadari Yasuranandana Brajajana Ranjana Suranandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Opinjana Ballava Givanadari Opinjana Ballava Givanadari Yasuranandana Brajajana Ranjana Suranandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jai Srila Prabhupada Such a Shriman, His Divine Loving Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki, Ananda Koi Vaishnavinda Ki, Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki, Brahmshakho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita, Shri Gadhar Shri Vasudi Gaur Bhaktivinda Ki, Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki, Vrindavan Dham Ki, Mayapur Dham Ki, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki, Samaveda Bhaktivinda Ki. All glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Granga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishpadaya Krishna Vistaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitya Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaudavani Pacharini Nivashesha Sunyavari Paskatya Desatanani Umekana Timirandasya Jananjana Salakaya Jaklun Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadanmayam Dadanti Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvarutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Pitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopisa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste O Mahavananaya Krishna Premo Patayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gaur Tushe Namaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vindavanishri Vishabhanu Sate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vayevacha Patitanam Bhavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're studying text 36 in chapter 4. And I'll read the verse 3 times so that you can read along with me in your homes. Apicherasi papebhya, apicherasi papebhya, sarvebhya papakritamaha, sarvam jnana phalenaiva, virginam santarishyasi, apicherasi papebhya, sarvebhya papakritamaha, sarvam jnana phalenaiva, virginam santarishyasi, apicherasi papebhya, sarvebhya papakritamaha, sarvam jnana phalenaiva, virginam santarishyasi. And the word for word, api, even, chet, if, asi, you are, papebhya, of sinners, sarvebhya, of all, papakritama, the greatest sinner, sarvam, all such sinful reactions, jnana palvena, by the boat of transcendental knowledge, eva, certainly, virginam, the ocean of miseries, santarishyasi, you will completely cross, or cross completely. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. Purport. Proper understanding of one's constitutional position in relation to Krishna is so nice that it can at once lift one from the struggle for existence which goes on in the ocean of nations. This material world is sometimes regarded as an ocean of nations and sometimes as a blazing forest fire. In the ocean, however expert a swimmer may be, the struggle for existence is very severe. If someone comes forward and lifts the struggling swimmer from the ocean, he is the greatest savior. Perfect knowledge received from the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the path of liberation. The boat of Krishna consciousness is very simple, but at the same time, the most sublime. Jai Srila Prabhupada. So this analogy of the ocean of misery is actually a common analogy in the scriptures. And it also mentions that sometimes this material world is compared to a blazing fire, which is an excellent analogy also, because it conjures up the emotions and the helplessness the living entity feels, and they're in this situation. Actually, when I was a young girl, I grew up on the ocean, and it's very common. Spent my summer swimming in the ocean. It's very comfortable in it. Very familiar with it, I thought. I was an excellent swimmer. I was a competitive swimmer. I even trained for the Olympics for some time. So it seemed like no big deal to be in the ocean. But one afternoon, and when we would walk down to the beach, you start looking at the waves, and we would judge them that day. Were they safe to go in? Was there a rip tide? Were they mild? We could tell just by looking. So everything looked fine, and we went into the water. But then when we were swimming, all of a sudden I look up and I see this huge wave building, just building up. And there's two things you could do. You could swim out to the out of the water, or you could swim under and go swim beyond the wave. But I was in such a position, first of all, the wave, because it was so powerful and it was pulling water, so the current was so strong, it was pulling me out. And so the only thing I could do is what you do is you dive under the wave, and when it comes over you, you dive under and you just lay on the floor of the ocean. But this wave was so much turbulence that it pulled me up off the bottom and spun me around like a rag doll in a washing machine. I was completely helpless with dirt and rocks and whatever else, and I was a bit disoriented. I didn't even know what was up, what was down, which way to go to get out of it. And so then I just came out enough to get a little air when I see another one coming. And again, I can't go out of the water and I can't go past the wave. So again, I had to go through this whole thing. Thank Krishna. There was only 3 of them. But I can tell you, it's a completely a frightening experience. But this is an experience that the living entity is going through in this material world, is suffering so much in so many ways. It is quite difficult. And that struggle and that suffering is coming from the karma that the living entity has to endure due to their activities. And Srila Rupa Goswami, he identifies the different stages of karma very nicely in the Upadeshamrita, and also in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or the Nectar of Devotion, which Srila Prabhupada has translated so nicely. And so the karma has these different stages. And one stage of karma is where it's just right there waiting to manifest itself. In other words, we have been traveling since time immemorial and doing simple activities and acquiring this karma. And so it could come out at any time. And this is described like a thief who's robbed a bank. And the police know who he is, and they know where he lives. And they're just getting their paperwork and warrants in order, and they're going to go get him. It's just a matter of time. And that's how like our karma can be. It's just a matter of time before this karma comes and affects us in different ways. The next type of karma that's described is the mature karma. And this is interesting in that this is what's happening now, is what we're suffering from now. And Srila Prabhupada, he explains that when we become devotees, it's Krishna, he minimizes our karma. And he structures it for a devotee so that it's conducive for the devotee's devotional service. And so a devotee should have the proper mentality that when we are suffering from karmic reaction for different things, that we should see it as we brought it on ourselves and we deserve so much worse. But Krishna is so kind that he's arranged it, that he's minimized it. And Srila Prabhupada also says that when Krishna sees the sincere attitude of the devotee, he even gives more mercy to the devotee to help him through the difficult times. But these two types of karma can be mitigated through atonement. And there's many different atonements recommended in the Vedas. And even other religions have their methods of atonement. But the third type I think is the most dangerous, because this is the papa, the seed. It's the bija. It's a sinful seed that has kuta, it has the inclination to do the sinful act again. Because when one does a sinful act, like someone takes intoxication, they have to suffer all the reactions for whatever that intoxication does to the body. And then there's social reactions. There's maybe the family's destroyed, so many problems. But there's also a reaction that's very dangerous. And that's the desire to do it again. And even though they have these rehab centers and programs to help people get over their addictions, and there's addictions for so many things. People are dealing with these addictions. It's like a world epidemic, this addictions to these material things that disrupt one's natural flow of life. And the only way to remove this type of karma is through devotional service. See, it's like a field of weeds. You have a big field of weeds, and you think, well, I'll just burn the weeds all down and they'll be gone. But as soon as the rain comes and the conditions are nice, all those little seeds you could never see are in the earth, and they'll sprout up new weeds all over, everywhere. And so similarly, these seeds are in our heart. And we may not even know that maybe in 2 or 3 lifetimes back, I had an addiction to gambling. But you know, I came in a nice family that didn't gamble, and they taught us not to do these things. But let's say I happen to fall into association of this type of people. These seeds are going to be watered, and it's going to be sprouted. Before you know it, I'm going to have a problem. So this is why good association is so important for us, to keep nice association with devotees. So the only way to remove this is through devotional service. And this is actually true for all simple activities, is that this devotional service removes all of them. This boat of transcendence. So where does it come from? This is nice. Just 2 verses back, it tells us where it came from. The Bhagavad Gita tells us where this boat of transcendence comes from. Tadviti pranipatena pariprasena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnanina statvadarshanaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So this is who we have our great gratitude for pulling us out of this miserable condition of material life, is the spiritual master. And how we actually show that gratitude, we'll discuss a little later. But so now, what is this knowledge that is being talked about here? And Krishna lays it out for us in chapter 13, text 8 to 12. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, 8 to 12, humility, pridelessness, nonviolence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of the sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance. So this is what a devotee is, and this is what we're learning. This is what we're striving for, to be a qualified devotee of these things that we're learning. And there is actually one personality that the Bhagavatam talks about, Ajamil, in the 6th canto. And as you probably know, Ajamil was quite a simple, low character. He didn't start out that way. He actually started out as a Brahmana, and he was being trained as a Brahmana and was getting a good Brahmin education. But then he happened to see a Sudra and a prostitute engaged in illicit sex, and he let his senses dwell on this. And from that, he became completely degraded. He became a drunkard, a liar, a cheater, a thief, so many simple things. He ate gross, disgusting things, and he had a simple life. He happened to have the good presence of mind to name his son Narayan, a name of God. And so when it was time for his death, and he was lying there, and I've heard from caregivers who have worked in hospice situations that sometimes people, they see the Yamadutas coming because they start calling out in fear. And so he could see these Yamadutas coming, and his description of the Yamadutas is frightening. They're so ugly, and they're so hideous, and they're so mean. And they come with dogs with teeth, barking and biting, and they have these tools and ropes that rip the subtle body out of the gross material body. Such a horrible situation. And they figured, the Yamadutas are thinking, this is low-hanging fruit. He's so simple, we'll just take him back to Yamaraj. This will be easy. But when Ajamil saw them, he called out in complete distress. He called out, Narayan. And in this merciful Lord, he sent the Yamadutas, he sent the Vishnudutas immediately to save Ajamil. And then there was a skirmish, right? They had a fight over him. And of course, the Vishnudutas won. And the Yamadutas ran back to Yamaraj to find out, who's more powerful than you? We thought you were God. And then he told them, he says, don't bother any of these people who are wearing neck beads and tilak and chanting the holy name. No, don't bother them. They belong to Krishna. So of course, Ajamil, he got his life extended a little, and he was able to go back and do some work because he was not ready to go back to Godhead. But he was given the opportunity. And like we all are, we're given this wonderful opportunity of Krishna consciousness. And we don't know when death is coming. It sometimes can be very sudden and unexpected. So just from chanting this holy name one time, it's so powerful. It's so amazing that Ajamil was saved. And this is like the for that seed, we were talking about those seeds. If you have a seed and you put too much water on it, it can't sprout either. It becomes disintegrates. And so this holy name is like a flood of water on the seeds of our heart. And as Lord Chaitanya, Lord Chaitanya says, Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamitas Marane Nakala Hita Dishitava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Duraivam Sam Ihanjani Nugraha. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benedictions to living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh, my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I am so unfortunate. I have no attraction for them. This process is so sublime and so simple. And we could chant anywhere, anytime. In previous ages, like in Sati, Treta, Dwapara Yugas, in those different millenniums, there were so many different requirements for becoming self-realized. But like in Sati Yuga, where it was through meditation, they had a lifetime of 100,000 years. They had time to perfect this. And in Dwapara and Treta Yuga, where it was required for sacrifices and deity worship, it requires an immense amount of wealth. And it requires brahmanas who pronounce the mantras perfectly. We don't have that in this age. And so what we have is extreme mercy from Krishna himself as Lord Chaitanya in chanting this holy name. Of course, you know, we could turn on tapes, we can chant. Most of the time we don't have great mental need to have great mental concentration. So we're doing simple things. It's so easy just to add the holy name, and it simultaneously everything we're doing becomes spiritualized, becomes transcendental. Of course, it's recommended and it's great benefit when we're chanting our japa. As Srila Prabhupada says, we cry like a baby for its mother. And if you've ever heard, and I'm sure you have, heard a baby cry for its mother, it's a heart-wrenching sound. You just want that mother almost as badly as a baby wants his mother to come and take the child. And that way, if we call out for Krishna with that much earnestness and sincerely and with tears, then this is the price of Krishna. This is his price. So we find now that people are trying so many processes of self-realization, so many unreasonable processes that are ridiculous, like meditation, that they have it's just simply a concoction. And that they're thinking that they can ascend with their powers or their minds or whatever. But actually the holy name is a descending process. It's coming right from Goloka. Right from Goloka. And this holy name of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There's no difference between Krishna and all his potencies and all his incarnations and this holy name. It's the same pure product. It's perfect. The holy name will release one from the designated conditions arising from the gross and subtle body. This holy name will relieve us. And there's a nice discussion in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the first canto, second chapter, text 19, and it says, as soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of material nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness, and he becomes completely happy. He's established and happy because this is his natural condition. And just like the fish can never be happy taken out of the water, you can give it a very pretty she-fish, or you may give it a very nice bed or a beautiful car, but that fish is never going to be happy outside of the water. And similarly, this is our condition. We can never be happy trying to engage in this material world. This state of existence, that when one is fully satisfied in spiritual bliss, this state of existence is called Brahmabhuta or Atmanandi, because they are transcendental to the material state of existence. So actually, this is why a devotee doesn't really care about liberation. He never thinks, I want to be liberated, because already it arrives. Because the devotee becomes so blissful serving Krishna that he doesn't care if he's in a hellish planet. He doesn't care if he's in a heavenly planet. He doesn't care if he's whatever. It doesn't matter as long as he can be engaged in devotional service. And devotional service is not an inactive state. It's very active, as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita. The soul can never be inactive. And this is the unalloyed activity of the soul, is devotional service. The effects of devotional service becomes manifest by completely eliminating the effects of passion and ignorance. Lust, desire, hankering, inactivity, foolishness, sleep. He's fixed in the mode of goodness. This is Suddha Sattva. And when one is fixed in the mode of goodness, Suddha Sattva, he can see Krishna eye to eye. In the Bhagavad Gita 7.3, it talks about how one person, one man or woman out of many thousands of ordinary animal men who are interested in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, one person, only one, will take this process of prescribed duties to perfect human life. And then, out of many thousands of those people who are trying to protect human life, only one such person will obtain success in knowing this scientifically about the personality of Godhead, Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada has opened up a storehouse for us of mercy. We're all being given this opportunity. In the Bhagavad Gita 18:55, Krishna says, one can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me, by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Perfection of human life is when one realizes that he's not a product of matter, and that in fact he's spirit, soul, and he understands that there's nothing in this material world that will satisfy him or enliven him like Krishna consciousness. This is possible when one is above the modes of material nature. So when we see the modes of material nature acting on us, we know we have work to do. We know we need to chant more. We need to read more. Prabhupada recommended we read 2 hours a day. He recommended we know these books like a lawyer knows law books. So we'll immediately be able to go to chapter and verse of whatever we're dealing with to help us. It's interesting because the mind, as we understand, the mind can be very difficult and very challenging. But if we strengthen the intelligence, the mind is inclined to listen to the intelligence. So if we strengthen the intelligence with Krishna, then the mind will follow. In this discussion in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it says in Text 21. Thus the knot in the heart is pierced, in all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees the self as master. This doesn't mean we see ourselves as master. That's been the problem of our misconceptions about who we are for so long, thinking that we could be God at some point. But no, it's like when the sun is rising in the early morning now, you know, it's so dark after Mangalartik, and I like to walk and chant. And it's so dark. I can't see anything except for the pathway. But gradually, as the sun comes up, you can discern the trees from the buildings. You can see the flowers on the trees. You can even see the squirrels and everything else you can see. And that's how it is for us. As Krishna enlightens our heart, our path in spirituality will become more and more clear. Krishna is like the sun, and ignorance is like darkness. And so in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's interesting because in text 15, chapter 2, it says that liberation from material bondage is therefore a byproduct of devotional service, like we were discussing. And attainment of spiritual knowledge is not sufficient to ensure liberation. So such knowledge must be overcoated with devotional service. So ultimately, the devotional service alone predominates. So knowledge by itself is really powerless to help us. It has to be in connection with devotional service. Even karma yoga in connection with devotional service can be liberating. Even jnana yoga in connection with devotional service can be liberating. Bhakti is completely independent of karma and jnana. So any sensible person who is above the average man with a poor fund of knowledge must constantly remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead and glorify him and remember him and worship him and chant his names. By constantly hearing about him, that is the perfect way of devotional service. So what to say of the gratitude we owe the personality and personalities who have helped us along this path. So many wonderful personalities. And we owe them all a great debt. We're greatly indebted. And how we show that gratitude is amazing too. It doesn't require any experiential endeavor. It's best served by staying engaged in devotional service with our mind and heart, words, and actions. In this way, we repay all the spiritual masters who have come and helped us on our path of Krishna consciousness. So I will end here and open it up for discussion or questions or corrections.
Okay, Hare Krishna, does somebody have some discussion, questions, comments? I have allowed you to unmute yourself. You can unmute yourself and ask. I liked your personal story in the beginning about the ocean. It really brought it home how real the danger of the ocean was. Very good.
I was so familiar with it, I thought it was my friend.
Fortunately, Krishna saved you from getting completely lost.
Yeah, that would have been really bad before I met Prabhupada to have that happen.
Yeah.
So shall we end here? Or does somebody have a question or a comment?
Anybody want to say anything? Please unmute and say something. It looks like nobody's feeling talkative today.
All righty. So let us all stay engaged in devotional service at His divine lotus feet of His divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. All glories to Prabhupada.
Prabhupada.